Today we're gonna look at 42 biases explained in 8 minutes. I do not even know what a bias is.
Bias blind spot. The tendency
Okay.
to think that oneself is less affected by cognitive biases compared to others. Gambler's fallacy.
Okay, I did not catch that. Did you guys catch that? I did not catch that. Bias blind spot. That's the first one? I don't even know what it is.
The tendency to think that oneself is less affected by cognitive biases compared to others. Gambler's fallacy.
Okay, gambler's fallacy. Let's see what this one says.
Gambler's fallacy happens when there's a tendency to think that future probabilities are altered by past events, when in reality, they are unchanged.
Okay, so it's pretty much like, oh, you feel like, oh, the next one is gonna hit. I'm for sure gonna win the next one because I failed the last 1 million times. Okay, this one actually makes sense.
Omission bias. It's the tendency to judge harmful actions as worse or less moral than equally harmful inactions. Proportionality.
What? Oh, what? Okay, sure.
Bias. Our innate tendency to assume that big events have big causes, which may also explain our tendency to accept conspiracy theories. Moral credential effect. It occurs when someone who does something good gives themselves permission to be less good in the future. Self-serving bias.
Oh gosh, these are going by way too quick. I do not even know. Like honestly, to you guys, I don't even know what the heck a bias is. What is a bias? Bias is a disproportionate weight leaning and I can't even speak. For or against an idea, thing, group, usually in a way that is closed-minded, unfair, or lacks neutrality. I cannot even explain to you guys what I just read.
It's the tendency to claim more responsibility for successes than failures. Framing effect. The framing effect is the tendency to draw different conclusions from the same information, depending on how that information is presented. This includes the contrast effect, which is the enhancement or reduction of a certain stimulus's perception when compared with a recently observed contrasting object. Actor-observer bias.
Okay, guys, for all of you smart people out there, can you guys actually educate me in the comments, like what the heck does all this mean?
The tendency for explanations of other individuals' behaviors to overemphasize the influence of their personality and underemphasize the influence of their situation, and for explanations of one's own behaviors to do the opposite. Picture superiority.
Okay, so it's pretty much just seeing everything in two perspectives, right? These don't even make sense to me. Like, I feel like they're just dumb ideas.
Effect. The notion that concepts that are learned by viewing pictures are more easily and frequently recalled than are concepts that are learned by viewing their written word form counterparts. Outcome.
So pretty much visual learners are prioritized in this bias, right?
Yes. It's the tendency to judge a decision by its eventual outcome instead of the quality of the decision at the time it was made. Mere exposure.
These are going by way too quick.
Exposure effect is a psychological phenomenon by which people tend to develop liking or disliking for things merely because they are familiar with them.
Yes, okay. This is one I do understand, and for me it's always obvious, right? Like example, like your coworkers. The more you see them, the more you tend to just relate to them, right? You know, you don't see them as strangers no more. You see them as side characters in your story, and this is based on this whole concept. I know I'm getting in a little bit of a monologue here, but with this whole concept, that's how a lot of relationships form. You go to a certain place, you see the same person every single day, and because you see them all the time, you talk to them a lot more, you get to know their personality, know their person, and then that's how you start to get in a relationship, as opposed to those dating sites or dating apps where you absolutely know nothing about the person and you just go based on appearance, right? So the more you see a person, the more you actually tend to relate to them or like them, as opposed to a stranger. That's pretty much what I get from this bias.
Hard, easy effect. It's the tendency to overestimate one's ability to accomplish hard tasks and underestimate one's ability to accomplish easy ones. Survivorship bias.
Oh gosh, okay, so yeah, I mean I get what they're saying there, but I don't know, these biases, I feel like they're just weird. Like nobody talks about these things.
Survivorship bias happens when concentrating on the people or things that survived some process and inadvertently overlooking those that did not because of their lack of visibility. Baader-Meinhof phenomenon.
Okay, did not get a single thing from that.
Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, also called frequency illusion, is the illusion where something that has recently come to one's attention suddenly seems to appear with
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm starting to get some of these. Some of these are starting to be a little bit close to home. So yeah, it's like when you buy a car or you buy a cologne, for example, you start to see more of it. You start to recognize more of it in the street. It's like you have tunnel vision. And it's like this is relatable because my wife, you know, she got a Nissan SUV, and the more we started to drive it, the more we started to see similar, well, not similar, but the exact same car out in the street and in the freeways. Okay, this hit close to home for me, honestly.
Very high frequency shortly afterwards. The reality is that before we placed our attention on that element, we just ignored it.
Exactly. Yes. Before we actually purchased something, it was just ignored in our conscience, in our mind. But now since we bought it, we're so hyper focused on it that we see it everywhere now.
Availability heuristics. The availability heuristic is the tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events that easily come to mind. The availability of memories can be influenced by how recent they are or how unusual or emotionally charged they may be. Dunning.
Okay, not bad. Yeah, it's kind of true, right? You know, you see a plane crash like on the news, and you're like, oh gosh, I have a trip coming up in 2 weeks. What if that's me? Right? It's not a like it's not something that happens all the time, but you know, there's always that chance. Oh gosh.
Effect. It's the tendency for unskilled individuals to overestimate their own ability and the tendency for experts to underestimate theirs. Halo effect.
Okay.
It's the tendency for a person's positive or negative traits to spill over from one personality area to another in others' perceptions of them.
Oh, okay. So is it just because you see someone is pretty, they means they're kind? Or because that's pretty much what I got from it.
Pygmalion effect. The phenomenon whereby others' expectations of a target person affect the target person's behavior in a self-fulfilling prophecy.
That was actually pretty funny, right? And you see that all the time, like, stop. Like, you see that in shows, right? You know, the one character is like, stop screaming. And then the other character is like, what do you mean? I'm not screaming. I'm completely calm. But they're screaming, right? You know, that one actually seems like a really fun idea or a fun thing to observe. If you guys are enjoying this video, make sure to like and subscribe. As you guys know, YouTube is rolling out an update that requires you guys to have 8,000 watch hours to get monetized. I don't know about you guys, but I'm trying to become a full-time YouTuber. So if you guys could please hit that like button and subscribe, I would truly appreciate it. Okay, the decoy effect.
This bias is...
Before they explain this one, I feel like I already have an idea about what it is. Is it pretty much like for marketing, right? Or for sales? You have the small, medium, and large soda cups. The small and medium soda cups are $4, but the large, oh my gosh, it's $4.50. Only 50 cents more, and I could get a large, right? But the small and the medium are just there for a decoy. Am I right? Or am I just stupid?
used in marketing. It's the phenomenon
okay,
whereby
marketing.
consumers will tend to have...
Okay, I was kind of right. Oh, $400 for 300, $300 for 200.
Specific change in preference between two options when also presented with a third.
Oh, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. There's that middle ground. So people are going to be like, 400 is too high. 300, hey, wait. Oh, okay, never mind. They're using a different tactic. Oh my gosh, I almost got tricked. So they're gonna look at this middle one and they're gonna be like 450 for 250 when I could just get 400 for 300. It's a no-brainer. But that one is just a decoy. You slimy dogs. How dare you guys implement this into your marketing? I mean, it must work since people, I guess, are actually falling for this.
That is asymmetrically dominated. An option is asymmetrically dominated when it is inferior in all respects to one option, but in comparison to the other option, it is inferior in some respects and superior in others. Selection bias.
Okay, selection bias.
Selection bias is the bias introduced by the selection of individuals, groups, or data for analysis in such a way that proper randomization is not achieved, thereby failing to ensure that the sample obtained is representative of the population intended to be analyzed. Anchoring bias.
Okay, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory.
The anchoring bias is the tendency to rely too heavily on one trait or piece of information when making decisions, usually the first piece of information acquired on that subject. This is why first First impressions are so important. They paint a picture of what the other person is, and that picture gets anchored, making it hard to change. This bias is often exploited during negotiations. When the seller gives a seemingly unreasonable high price, that price becomes the starting point for the negotiation, and the buyer inadequately adjusts from it.
Okay, so I guess it's like just setting a foundation, right? That's pretty much how you negotiate. Someone says, give me $10,000, and you tell them, meet me in the middle. I'll give you $6,000. And then the other guy is kind of like, oh gosh, well, he wants $6,000. How about meet me in the middle for 8,000? You got yourself a deal. That's pretty much what I got from it.
Bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, focus on, and remember information in a way that confirms one's preconceptions. Overconfidence effect. The overconfidence effect is the tendency to have excessive confidence in one's own answers to questions. For example, for certain types of questions, answers that people rate as 99% certain turn out to be wrong 40% of the time.
Oh my goodness. And sometimes, sometimes I don't like to give myself high expectations. If I feel like I'm 99% right in something, I always tell myself, be ready to feel disappointed. Just to be prepared, right? Because this pretty much is a lot of us, right? We think we know everything. We think we know the whole world, and when the whole world bows down to us, oh yes, Tony, you are supreme. No. But in reality, we're all just dumb sometimes, right? We all make mistakes.
Information bias.
Information bias.
Information bias is a cognitive bias to seek information when it does not affect action. Hindsight bias. The hindsight bias is sometimes called the I knew it all along effect, and it is the common tendency for people.
Okay, yeah, I guess, anyone can say this, right? You're in the middle of a challenge, and then they reveal the answer, and you're just gonna you could lie, and you're like, oh, I knew that all along. Oh my gosh, I knew it all this time. But in reality, just because you got the information, that's when you decided to go 100% all in on it.
To perceive past events as having been more predictable than they actually were. Projection bias. It's the tendency to overestimate how much one's future selves will share one's current preferences, thoughts, and values, thus leading to suboptimal choices. Apophenia.
So it's pretty much like you're talking to yourself? Is that what they're trying to say there?
Apophenia is the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things. This bias...
Okay, this one hits more home, right? You see $100 bill on the floor and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a sign. Although it could be, okay? It could be a sign.
Of the ways a stereotype can lead people to expect certain groups and traits to fit together, and then to overestimate the frequency with which these correlations actually occur. Another type of apophenia is pareidolia, which happens, for example, when you see images of animals in the clouds. Serial position effect. The serial position effect
Isn't that just psychology? The way your mind just forms images, because, we see these things almost all the time. So if you see like a face inside of a tree, is because I guess your mind just sees these characteristics of, okay, 2 balls, eyes, right under the 2 balls is a nose. And if you see any form of line under here, that's the mouth. Guys, like I said, I'm dumb. These are just my opinions. If you guys want to find, or if you guys want to hear the most relatable opinions, then you guys got to watch my videos, because I am a normie. I'm a normal guy. I'm not smart, all my opinions, I feel like they're just normal. But I digress. Let's keep going.
Tendency of a person to recall the first and last items in a list better than the middle ones. Recency bias.
Okay, that one actually, a lot of these are fascinating, honestly. I feel like a lot of these have to do with psychology in itself, right? Like this last one, where if you get a list of like 10 things, you're going to most likely remember the first one and the last one because of exposure. The first one is the one that you're exposed to, and the last one is the one that you're last exposed to. So you're more likely going to remember those two.
Bias gives greater importance to the most recent event, such as an interviewer who can vividly remember just the last person he interviewed because they're the most recent conversation.
Okay, now we're getting into some interesting topics. So just because it's recent, that's the one that you tend to go to, right? So if you're picking 10 candidates and you're like, well, the most recent one I had didn't seem bad, despite the other ones being maybe better, but because the most recent one was like, okay, better than average, you're like, you know what? I'll go with the most recent one. Okay, I get this one. This one actually makes sense.
It's related to the serial position effect. Authority bias. Authority bias is the tendency to attribute greater accuracy to the opinion of an authority figure, no matter what the opinion's content is.
You're one.
Okay, that one actually does make sense. And before we get into this ad, it's so true. You see someone, an expert on the topic, and they literally could say something outrageous or not even true. And because you're not an expert in that subject, you're like, it must be right. It must be true. This guy has a lab coat. I'm going to fully trust him 100%. This guy has amazing hair, by the way.
It is unit bias. The standard suggested amount of consumption, like the food serving size, that's perceived to be appropriate. A person would consume it all, even if it was too much for that particular person. Availability cascade. It's a
I did not get a single thing about that bias. Availability cascade.
forcing process in which a collective belief gains more and more plausibility through its increasing repetition in public discourse. It can be summarized in the phrase, repeat something long enough and it will become true. It's
Kind of like those self-improvement affirmations, right? That you scream yourself in the mirror. I am able. 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 Kind of like that, right? So you tend to believe it.
bandwagon effect. It's the tendency to do things because many
Oh my gosh, I hate when I do this. I switch over to my talking cam and I just forget to switch it back to my reaction cam. So you guys are just seeing my dumb face.
people do the same. This effect can happen for two reasons. Conformism, when someone wants to fit in with others, or lack of information, where the person thinks that the opinion
This happens a lot, guys. I'm sure a lot of you guys know this happens a lot. The bandwagon effect. You saw this when the Golden State Warriors were winning game after game with Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. Who else? What's the other guy's name? Let's just call him Tom. So they were winning, right? And they were just jumping on the bandwagon of the Golden State Warriors. And all of a sudden, everyone was going for the Golden State Warriors. Even myself.
many people is probably more accurate than just his. Illusory truth effect. People are more likely to identify as true statements those they have previously heard, even if they cannot consciously remember having heard them. Next in line effect. When taking turns speaking in a group using a predetermined order, like going clockwise around a room, people tend to have diminished recall for the words of the person who spoke immediately before them.
Oh, that's messed up. Just because you're last, your words mean nothing. You're worthless. That's why you need to speak up first. Set the standard, right? I could see how this maybe could happen. Not all the time, obviously, but maybe it's because people are tired or getting fatigued of the information. So they're just like, all right, let's jump into the next topic. And because four people already said something, and you're the last one, they're kind of like, all right, whatever. Let's forget it. Move on to the next topic. Like I said, it could happen, but I feel like this does not really happen a lot.
Group bias. In-group bias is the tendency for people to give preferential treatment to others they perceive to be members of their own groups. It usually happens because we encounter and interact with people in our group much more frequently than with strangers. This makes people in our group seem unique, while people outside of our group seem boring and conformist. The mere
Yes, this is
exposure effect.
I was literally about to bring this other bias into question, well, not into question, but in this conversation. If this sounds identical, because we see these people so often, they become side characters in our lives, and we tend to take their opinions and take their choices more into consideration because we see them all the time. So we trust them. I don't know. I just feel like I'm talking, what's the expression? Talking out of my butt.
plays a role in this bias. Spotlight effect. It's the sensation that everybody is focused on us that comes from overestimating the extent to which other people notice our appearance or behavior. Choice support.
Okay, spotlight effect. That's actually a really common effect that is more present in YouTubers, right? You know, we feel like the spotlight is always on us. We go out and we record a video, you know, doing a food review at a new boba spot, and you have your cameraman pointing your camera, or you have the tripod out there, and yeah, people are gonna see you. But I feel like a lot of us YouTubers, we feel like there's always eyes on us. Does that make sense?
Bias. The tendency to remember our choices as better than they actually were, because we tend to over-attribute positive features to options we chose and negative features to options not chosen. Ostrich effect. People tend to bury their head in the sand and avoid potentially negative but useful information just to avoid psychological discomfort. Selective perception bias.
I wish I had that. Oh my gosh, I wish I had that. Imagine just going to the Louis Vuitton store and just be like, I'm gonna get 5 bags. I don't care. I'm not gonna look at my bank account. Just give me 5 bags, okay? Right now, pronto. I think that's actually a little toxic. Or not toxic, but a little careless, right? It's not like you're just gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna check my finances, so let me go ahead and just drop 5 grand in my shopping spree. Yeah, it's a little careless.
It's the tendency not to notice and more quickly forget stimuli that cause emotional discomfort and contradict our prior beliefs. Peak end rule. People seem to perceive not the sum of an experience, but the average of how it was at its peak and how it ended. I'll be making similar videos. Subscribe to.
Wow, that's amazing.